Hey guys, what's going on? So I'm going to do the Bullseye Trades update this week today, so Friday. It's only halfway through the day as well, but I figured it's about time to do it because this weekend, when I usually do it, I'm actually away at a meditation retreat for the weekend, so I won't be posting any videos. So let's just do it now. We only have a couple hours left till market closes. The trade's pretty much over. Most people have done with it. But yeah, let's go through it and see how people did. I know a few people made money. I made some money, but overall it was an extremely difficult week for Bullseye. One of the few weeks that was kind of potentially a losing trade for some people. Again, if you want to learn more about Bullseye, I've written a full review. I'm keeping a track record of every single trade this year. I also did an interview with Jeff Bishop here that you might want to watch. Kind of some insight into how he thinks and how he finds these trades. Here's the track record for 2022. You can see last week was a huge winner, 300%, 100% the week before. There's a 50% loss. Lots and lots of winners. You do get the occasional loss. I think for people that are kind of used to Bullseye, this probably would have been a winning week, but for people that are new to it, it might have been a losing week. So let's go through the trade and kind of analyze what was going on and how it went. So here's the email that came out on Monday. So it was NIO, N-I-O. Was a Bullseye trade pick. Again, if you aren't actually used to this service yet, remember he goes live at 11 o'clock Eastern time and goes through all the details. So he'll talk about the Keltner channels, what he's looking at for the trade, etc. So it's really worth tuning into that if you can on live. I'm not sure who gets access to that, whether you have to pay extra for it or not. I have Raging Bull Elite, so I have access to everything, so I'm not quite sure what comes with what. But if you do have access to the live stream that he does on Mondays, definitely check that out because it can really help guide your trades and also just help you learn a little bit more about the thesis behind these trades. So I'll give Jeff his dues here. He did say in the email that he doesn't like trading NIO and it kind of probably would rather sit on cash this week, but he gave the idea anyway, which is, you could argue maybe it's better not to give a trade at all. So he says here, this week I'm looking at NIO calls. Am I absolutely thrilled with this idea? Nope. I think the best move would be to sit on cash for the next few days and see how the market digests this move. But if you want to force me to make a trade right now, I would have to go with NIO. So I think if you're new to the system, to Bullseye, when Jeff says something like this, it's probably better not to take the trade. I took it and a lot of other people took it, partly because we've kind of got the hang of Bullseye and kind of know how to manage these a little bit. So unfortunately not a good start if you're brand new to Bullseye this week. So he goes on to say, when you consider things like the Chinese economy reopening, and hopefully the worst news is out already about Chinese stocks getting delisted, you should hope this is a sector where the worst is behind it. Unfortunately there was some news to the contrary on that this week, which probably contributed to NIO not working out so well. The Chinese tech sector has been trying very hard to make a bottom for the last few weeks, and we finally break out to the upside. There are a lot of stocks you could play on that trend, but I'm going with NIO. I want to keep a tight stop loss on this trade. So he kind of knew this probably wasn't going to work. You can tell reading between the lines here that this was not like a solid conviction trade. And I hope people played it that way. I know I did. I went in small. I tried to time to get the best entry and exit possible. And it paid off for me, but you got to be careful, especially when there's not a lot of conviction behind these ideas. 1080, by the way, is a really tight stop for Jeff. Usually he has a much looser stop on these things. So all these things combined should have indicated that maybe should go in a little bit smaller than normal. And the fact that calls were really cheap means that you could actually scale in small amounts at a time, which is helpful and is kind of what I did. So it definitely helps. And so he says, if I'm right, then I think NIO could have another $1 to $2 of quick upside to it in the next week or so. I'll look to just under 13 or 14 as my two upside targets. And so that was the trade. Let's go and have a look at NIO, what actually happened. I'll kind of give a description on what I did on this. So let me zoom in Thinkorswim here. So this is Friday, Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday, and Monday. So the idea came out pre-market, just as the market opens. We got this gift, which was a nice dip right at market open, and that allowed for me to take an entry around here somewhere, and then added a little bit more at the close here. And we got lucky. We had a nice big gap up, and I made 40% on this before things went really, really wrong really quickly. And that's a couple of things here. Is usually entering on a Monday later on usually works really well. Sometimes on a Tuesday, in this case it wouldn't work so well. Scaling in though on a Monday after the initial open, sometimes you'll lose because this thing could have ripped up, and you wouldn't have been in it. But in this case, scaling in when it's finding support was kind of a good plan. I think a lot of people in the Facebook group did a similar thing. Some people got in here. I know a few people actually just played the bounce. That was a significant bounce as it was. But for me, I held overnight and ended up selling right at the open up here, which was great. So I was really happy with that trade. If I start to see 30-40% on Bullseye, I'm taking most, if not all of it, at that point. Sure, you miss out on 100-200% winners, but you end up having a lot less stress, and you end up avoiding a large loss. Because if you'd followed the rules, and you choose to follow the rules, right? I mean, it's up to you if you want to try and copy Jeff exactly. Totally do, by all means. But my experience with this has told me to not to have such a loose stop on these trades as Jeff does. And this one was particularly tight. He said 10.8 close, so technically this would have been the day that you'd stop out, or even this day. So you'd have had to ride this thing down all the way down to here and taken a significant loss. Usually though, like, my advice is probably take 50% loss as the absolute max loss on this thing. That's been my experience, is what usually works out overall to be most profitable for me. It might be different for other people. I tend to take profits more quickly and cut losses more quickly as well. And in this case it worked out fairly well. I got kind of lucky and got the move. If I'd held off though, I'd ended up taking a loss. So that was NIO for the week. Not a good trade. Definitely a losing trade for most people. I think in the comments down here you can see NIO almost hit stop loss at 1080. Would you exit 1080 or lower the stop loss? I'll probably close this before the end of the day for loss if it looks like it will close under 1080. So it's kind of something that people need to realize is a dip below 1080 doesn't really mean a whole lot. But if you're kind of convinced towards the end of the day that it will close under there, then it's probably worth just closing out. It was a fairly small loss because the stock really didn't move that much. Not really. I mean, if you look at the charts, it started up here at 11 and 1080 was kind of the stop. So we're only talking like $1 change in the stock. In the stock, it's not a huge loss, given the contracts were cheap as well. Let's see where we're at. Some people made money though. I know on the Facebook, and I made money. Wow, Jeff, thanks again. Your Bullseye service is amazing. So I'm guessing this guy did the overnight trade that I did as well. John got NIO calls 0.63, sold 2/3 at 0.85 today, so decent win on that as well. So you can always trade better than Jeff. He says, great, plan your trade and trade your plan. These are ideas that he researches and presents to you, and you can try and manage them how you like, which is cool. And again, go and check out the 11 a.m. Eastern Time lives, because you'll learn a lot and be able to manage these trades more effectively by yourself, which is always the goal. Like, teach yourself how to fish and not just rely completely on alerts, and use that as an extra guidance kind of thing. Alright, make sure you check out my full Jeff Bishop review. It'll be a link in the description below, and I'll talk to you guys soon.